Hey everyone, Shay here and welcome back to a new video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the cool new features that have just been added to Adobe Illustrator 2023. Stay tuned to the end of the video where we're going to be taking a look at some of the new AI tools and features that have just been added. So without any hesitation, let's get right into the video. Sweet, so the first thing to notice is that these features are actually only available for the latest version of Illustrator. I believe that's 28.0. If you guys are running 27.9, 27.8.1, I don't think that these are going to be available. And also, just a side note, these features, particularly the AI ones that we're going to be taking a look at a little bit later, they seem to be in their beta, so don't expect a whole lot from, Adobe, but they also are some finished and polished features that are also quite useful that we're going to be taking a look at. So the first tool on our list is the new Smoothen Path tool, or the Smooth tool. So let's get into Illustrator so I can show you guys how that works. So for this video, I've just made a line for demonstration purposes, and I've added a stroke to it with a few rigid edges and some sharp turns. And to use this tool, all you gotta do is select the object or path that you wanna edit, go to the Objects tab, go down to Path, and then to Smooth. So after you hit Smooth, a little dialog box will pop up with a slider. So this tool is pretty self-explanatory. All you gotta do is slide the slider to the right to add a smoothing effect, and back to the left to reduce the effect. There is also an automatic smooth, which is just this button over here, which automatically smoothens out points for you. So this was our line before any smoothing, and as we continue to drag the slider to the right, we can see that the line actually starts to change. So what I'm noticing with the new Smoothen tool, it's very similar to the Direct Selection tool. It's basically just automatically selecting the points for you and making them smooth or curved. And also what I'm noticing with the lines that already have a curve, it's essentially just kind of making them straighter to have a more gradual appearance. Another thing to note that with this tool, it seems to also add some rotation values to the end of the vector points. For example, if you compare the end points to these endpoints, they've been slightly rotated. So if you require some sort of precision in your line work, this tool is probably not for you. But if you're trying to make some sort of large scale adjustments over multiple and constant lines, I can definitely see a use for this type of tool. In my opinion, I'm not too sure if we really needed this tool. When I first heard about it, it sounded super similar to the brush tool's fidelity feature. Kind of like if you just went to the brush tool, went to the fidelity section and then just put it on smooth, then drew your line. That seems like a more practical approach to me as someone who has done illustration art in the past. But hey, maybe I'm just being too critical. Let me know in the comment section below if this is a tool that could fit well into your workflow. Jumping straight into the next feature, the Retype tool. Essentially what this tool does is it automatically identifies text within raster images and then converts that text into editable vectors. So back in Illustrator now, and I've just nabbed this photo of Pinterest. Sorry to the artist I stole this from. And to use this tool, you just click on your image, go to Type, click Retype, and this little dialog will pop up. So after you give it about a second, you can actually click on these little boxes that it gives you, basically telling you that this is the text that you can edit. And once you click on these boxes, you'll be prompted with some fonts that you can pick from. So the Retype tool essentially just tries to find some similar typefaces that have been selected from your raster image. And when you double click on a font, this little box will pop up. And after that finishes processing, you can hit apply, exit, and now when you go back to your image, the text or the portion of text that you've selected within the Retype pop-up window, that text is now editable. So now you can actually start typing away, and now you've basically edited that part of the text. However, you'll notice that there are some pretty big issues with this tool. Like I said, it's still in its beta, so it's pretty choppy, it's not so clean, it doesn't do a great job. The first thing you probably notice is that the text from before is kind of still in the background. It doesn't do a great job in covering up the old raster text. So when it's time to actually put your new text over it, it's basically unintelligible. Although, when I do use this feature on text that's on a much simpler background or a plain background, it does do a much better job. It is a really cool feature. It definitely saves some time, it definitely reduces the whole process of taking it back into Photoshop, using the patch tool to get rid of the text, and then, adding text back on top of that. So I'm pretty excited to see what Adobe does with this tool. I kind of hope they develop it a little bit more to make it better, because right now it's kind of shit. Alright, so the next tool on our list is something that I was really excited for, and it is a pretty special one, and that's the new Mockup tool. Keep in mind that this tool is also in its beta, so don't expect a whole lot. So back in Illustrator, and I've got this little example graphic that we're going to be using, and to use the Mockup feature, all you got to do is click on the object, go to the Objects panel, click on Mockup, and Make. Give your computer a second, and this little window should pop up right here. And now all you have to do is actually click on a mockup that you'd like to test your graphic on. So I'll just pick this cap one over here, give it a while, and boom, we've got a stock mockup. And as you can see, it automatically distorts and warps your image to the mockup. Keep in mind that these mockups are Adobe stock images, so you do have that annoying watermark in the background. But what's really neat about this tool is that it automatically warps your object to the mockup surface. Keep in mind that these are stock mockups that Adobe have programmed for you, so you cannot add your own images as yet. I will say it does a pretty good job in actually identifying the subject, which is obviously the hat in this case, and identifying curves and flat surfaces and bent surfaces. By far a pretty complete tool. I'm pretty excited to see what else they do. It doesn't do a great job in distinguishing the subject as a whole. It kind of just masks out the subject, and as we can see when you go to the bottom of the cap here, it kind of bleeds our little icon to the back of the cap when it shouldn't be doing that. But I would say otherwise a pretty decent tool. However, when I do see tools like this, I sometimes feel like Adobe is trying to blend their software packages together. For example, when we look at some of the packaging mockups here, it almost feels like they've stolen aspects of Adobe Dimension and now put them into Adobe Illustrator. Not to say that makes Adobe Illustrator bad, but it kind of like makes it a multimedia design tool when it's not. It loses its distinguishing mark as a 2D vector design tool. Personally, when I look at a feature like this, I would have loved to see something similar in Photoshop, like a material preview thing where you can design your textures in Photoshop and then preview them so that you don't have to take them to like Adobe Substance, for example. I feel like Photoshop could have used an update like that, and I just think if you are going to be, exporting mockups, you're probably going to be taking them back into Photoshop anyway. But when we look at dynamic mockups like apparel, I still feel it's best to, get a 3D model of, let's say a shirt or a cap, take it into Blender, unwrap it, put your 2D design on it, and then render it, straight from there. But overall, I'd give this tool a solid, 7 out of 10. It's pretty useful. It's not complete, but like I said, keep in mind that, these are beta features. So the next and final tool on our list is the text to vector graphic feature. Keep in mind, this one is also in its beta, but in my opinion, by far the most complete and polished tool in our list. So jumping back into Illustrator, you can already see that I've messed around with this tool a lot. It is quite fun, and it does a pretty good job in automatically, generating images from the text that you provide. So to use this tool, you gotta go to the Properties tab, and you'll see it right here. If you don't see it, it's probably in this little drop-down menu over here. Click that and you'll be presented with this. There are 4 types of vectors that you can generate: subjects, scenes, icons, and patterns. But the most exciting are the subject and scene types. So to use this, just select the type of AI art that you want to generate. Then you can start typing away. So I'm just going to generate a monochromatic female portrait. Before I hit generate, you can also use the style picker, which is basically like an ink drop tool, but for identifying styles. So I already have these graphics here. I'll click the style picker, click this object over here, so that when I generate the monochromatic female portrait, the style of the image that I just clicked will be applied to the new portrait. You can also click this little settings icon here to either add less detail or more detail. I'll just stick in the middle at 3 and then click generate. Keep in mind, this does take quite a while to generate depending on your computer's processing speed as well. And just like that, we have some portraits that have been generated for us. If you're unhappy with the results, you can also click on the variations tab and just drag and drop any new variation. In my experience of generating portraits, the generated images seem quite linear. The shadows appear on the same side of the face. It's usually a neck up portrait. And to be honest, regardless of what you put in the prompts tab, the style is pretty similar. I would say the only thing that the tool adapted from the above images here is the color scheme. Good news though, you can actually further edit the generated images. So after a few ungroup operations, you can start to, remove some of the individual features of the actual image. A close examination of these shapes, they seem to either be too rigid or too fluid, or sometimes just unorthodox. I'm not too sure of any illustrator that would use this type of shapes to create such a polygonal artwork, but for a beta tool, it's pretty good, I can't lie. My favorite use for this tool is actually generating scenes and getting a bunch of ideas. If you're into 3D game arts or environment arts, I can see this tool being super vital to the ideation process. And I will say it does a pretty good job in actually generating organic landscapes compared to non-organic objects. In my opinion, I think this tool favors the more stylized look when it comes to portraits and landscapes as well. And I'm pretty excited to see how these generative AI tools can be used across the Adobe atmosphere. If a tool like this was to be added in Adobe After Effects, I can definitely see how the animation process would be a hell of a lot more efficient. And that concludes this video. Don't forget to check out my socials in the link in the description below. And also let me know in the comment section below, do any of these new features have a significant impact on your workflow? If so, I'll be really excited to hear from you guys. But up until then, see you in the next video.